that God would not see them. Genesis 3:8. They lost what they had with God. The relationship they enjoyed with God already produced fear. They didn't want to talk to Him. They didn't even want to see Him. They hid among the trees of the garden that God created for them. Because of their rebellion, God expelled the human being from the Garden of Eden. Genesis 3:23. The expulsion from the garden is the symbol of spiritual death. Their rebellion against the holy God, their sin, separated them from God, which is spiritual death. Because of their rebellion, humanity suffered the saddest loss, the loss of its relationship with God. Since then all humans are born in that circumstance. Sin separates us from God and we cannot enjoy an intimate relationship with God like Adam and Eve had. 2. The loss of freedom. Sin enslaves us. Before they rebelled, Adam and Eve enjoyed a beautiful freedom because they had not known sin and its curse. They had never experienced the consequence of sin. After eating the fruit of the forbidden tree, they realized that sin enslaved them. They lost their freedom. From then on, they were going to be chained as slaves to sin. We see this image when God expelled the man from the garden and then set the cherubim on the east side of the Garden of Eden, and a fiery sword moving on every side, to guard the way. Genesis 3:24. They did not have the freedom to return to the garden, much less to God. They no longer had access. B. Jesus said, I tell you the truth, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. John 8:34. Which means that sin has enslaved us. Because we have sinned, sin enslaves us. We are not the exception. We have lost freedom. 3. The loss of innocence. Sin condemns us to death. In addition to losing the most important relationship and freedom, Adam and Eve suffered the loss of innocence. Immediately after biting the fruit, their eyes were opened, and they became aware of their nakedness. Therefore, they wove together fig leaves to cover themselves. Genesis 3:7. They couldn't walk like before. They lost their innocence. They knew they were guilty for having broken the Creator's word. The consequence was death. They died spiritually immediately and eventually died physically as well. B. In verses 14 to 19, you can read the entire judgment that God pronounced 162 on the serpent and humanity. But this morning I would like to highlight what God said to Adam. To the man He said, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree from which I forbade you to eat, the ground will be cursed because of you. 19. You will earn your bread by the sweat of your brow, until you return to the same land from which you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Genesis 3:17-19. God declared him guilty and fulfilled His word when He said, if you eat from the tree you will die. So it was. Sin condemned him to death, circa. Due to the loss of innocence, the dead woman has followed all of Adam's descendants. Therefore, we have never known a person who has been able to escape death. Sin condemns us to death. Romans 6:23 says that the wages of sin is